We're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies.
So President Trump addressing the nation, giving an update on Operation Epic Fury, saying it is nearing completion.
This is a Fox News poll reveals 58% of Americans oppose the military action, but President Trump laying out a compelling case last night for the American public.
Those numbers go up depending on how this ends. Joining us now is Fox News chief political anchor, special report anchor, and executive director Bret Baier, fresh off his network coverage. Bret, your thoughts about what kind of resonate from the speech last night?
Hey, good morning, guys. I think, this was a speech that some people looked at and said should have been given at the beginning a month ago. But obviously there was an effort to surprise the Iranians, and they didn't want to give that speech ahead of a military action. This speech was designed to shore up where people have questions about where this is going. And the message essentially was simple. We are going to finish the job. The U.S. is going to finish the job of the objectives we set out. And he laid those out, degrading the missile capabilities, burying the nuclear material, taking down the Navy and the Air Force, and making Iran not a threat to its neighbors, saying he's almost done, and referencing when he goes to Dover Air Force Base and meets the bodies of the 13 killed and talks about the injured, saying that the families have told him we need to finish the job. That said, he's saying we're going to finish the job quickly. And at that point, if Iran has not negotiated a settlement, it's going to be significant in these next 2 or 3 weeks, the attacks, before we leave.
So Bret, there's a fundamental disagreement that the president is having with some of the commentators that are out there and analysts. They continue to say, and they wanted this last night, they want more. And the president is saying that is, quote, stupid, because that would be telegraphing what he plans on doing. He'll give you the base, the bullet points, but that's about it. He's not going to talk military strategy. Is he the first president to carry out conflict that way?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, he has done that each time there's been some kind of military action. There's been sort of look at over here at the shiny thing, and then something's happened. And I'm not, I don't take away the possibility that that is possible this time. But, for the people out there that are really concerned about the nuclear weapons, and obviously the president said Iran can never get a nuclear weapon, he addressed that directly last night. And he said the nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard it would take months to get near the nuclear dust. If we see them making a move, even a move to it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard. Saying that they're going to watch. They're going to have a watch over this nuclear material. They know where it is. But the bottom line is most people don't even fully appreciate how bad Iran cheated. Saying that they didn't have this nuclear material enriched to 60%. It would only take them a short time to get to weapons grade 90%. Saying that they didn't have missiles that could travel 2,500 miles, and then they shot one. And so I think that there was a frustration on the administration and the president's part to hearing speeches from the UK Prime Minister and others saying this was not our war.
Yeah.
It's everybody's war if it is this threat to the region. That said, there are still critics, Lawrence, and they're loud.
Bret, speaking of those critics for a moment, President Trump said he's correcting the mistakes of his predecessors, obvious reference to Obama and Biden on freezing Iranian assets and failed diplomacy. But I'm curious, I have yet to hear a Democrat articulate what their path forward would have been for a problem that has bedeviled us for 5 decades. Have you heard an alternate path described or just criticism of the current path?
No, just criticism of the current path. And there are some Democrats who privately will tell you, we wish we had confronted it more directly like this at some point. Because you look back at 47 years, the world let Iran get to this point where they have as much leverage or did have as much leverage as they have. Now, as far as the Strait of Hormuz, you have the UK leading this 35-nation coalition, but saying that they're not going to get involved until Iran and the U.S. stop the war. And so I don't know how that's going to work as far as 2 to 3 weeks out and what that means for oil prices in the short term. Bottom line is the president says the U.S. doesn't get a lot of oil through the strait. Many other countries get large percentages, and they need to step up. And, you know, there's a lot to that. Obviously, people feel inflation going up. They feel gas prices going up. And it has to be addressed.
And you know, you talked about Lawrence and the tactics, and the president doesn't want to play his hand. I got it. But we also don't see much footage. We see black and white footage that looks devastating, but we see a lot of Tehran talk because they're allowed to have their national television station going. Why do you think we've left that up for them to address their nation and give their idea of how this war is going? Do you think that's a mistake?
That's a great question, Brian, and who knows? It could be in the target list of the last 2 or 3 weeks. But I think there is still a hope that there would be some negotiation. You saw yesterday the Iranian president put out kind of a interesting letter to Americans saying that they are going to hold the line. There's no signal that there's a call for a ceasefire, at least not yet, even though the administration says that's what they're hearing tangentially from the Iranians. The problem is there's some confusion on the ground of who the leader is, who can take the baton and be the person that makes the decisions. This will be critical for the next 2 weeks, what comes out of Iran. And maybe that's one of the reasons they left that media operation open, but it might go down at any time.
And of course, whoever becomes that leader, can they get control of the IRGC? Right. Because it seems like they're doing their own thing right now.
The hope is that the army, which has largely not been touched, will drop their arms and suddenly turn. The hope is that the people rise up. There's all kinds of hope. But as far as how that happens, what exactly it looks like on the ground, we don't know. Bottom line is the president's signaling there's a timeline here. He's not going to put as specific. He says 2 to 3 weeks. But once the objectives are clear, the U.S. is moving on, and they'll continue to keep a watch to make sure Iran doesn't go backwards.
We'll be sure to watch Special Report tonight with you, Bret Baier. You'll be starring, and of course, the panel is something to look forward to. And you never know. One night you might just book a band and make it more of a musical presentation. You've always thought about that.
That'd be great.
You know, we've been trying to follow your duck lips. We're trying to figure out how to get that in the show.
All right, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.